Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dog Show for January 15, 2025. We're going to be doing the divisional round picks for the 2024 NFL playoffs. We're going to intro Evan in just a second. Before we do, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. As you can see here, well, first of all, I'm wearing August is Gluttony Month shirt, but you can get all these shirts. You can get that shirt and all the others here at the merch store for 15% off. That includes the apron and the mug. Going to have some other stuff on here. I keep promising that, but I will eventually. Yeah, once I get through the free agency rankings. Also, please go to Amazon, buy my books. Jerks to the College Years is the most recent one, where I just made fun of people at Penn State. I went there for 6 years, so as you can imagine, I had a lot of writing material. Also, how the 2020 MVP was stolen. I was explaining to Evan before we started recording. This is the genesis of the No Cookie Jordan Love nickname. So if you're ever wondering about that, you can read all about it here in this book. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. Last week we had great super chat from Ken McNeagle. The week before that, Slew and John Sanders. You guys have been so awesome with the contributions. And as I always say, this is Q1, which means advertising is an all-time low for YouTube right now. So any contributions you guys can make with super chats, super stickers would be really appreciated. All right, so we are joined by Evan Daniel once again. Evan, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it as always. And how was your opening round of the playoffs?
Thanks, Walt. Opening round was great. We have this trend, and we talked about this last week with resumes. And this has been an unbelievable trend for years and years. Just looking at the resume of the team, stacking the team up against each other. And this week, the better resume went 4-2. We discussed the games last week. I went 5-1, so it was a very, very good week. Ultimately, what didn't make the week great was I had an 18-game same-game parlay, like really easy props for each game, as little as one. Like in the Eagles game, I just had Saquon to get the 70 yards, and I ended up going it was 12 for 12 when Baker Mayfield never got the ball back and ended with 185 yards. So we couldn't turn a $100 bet into 7,000. That was fun, though, to root for. But the games themselves were really, really, I mean, they weren't great games, but one of the reasons why I love football so much, it's not just watching the games on Sunday. It's thinking about the games throughout the week. It's trying to figure out what edges exist, what situational advantages exist, and then just kind of figuring out from there what the likely scenario is, and just watching the games, thinking about what's going to happen, handicapping, rewatching is really the beauty of the game. So I've watched all these games now twice. I went back this week and I watched, there's a couple of games with rematches this week. And so it's just great to kind of think about what's going to happen. And last week, not only did I get 5-1 against the spread, but the key factor that we discussed here on this show was pretty much spot on a lot of the games. So it's like, it's nice to watch a game. It's like, oh yeah, that's exactly why I thought this would happen. And that's exactly what happened in the game. So going through the games, it was really a very satisfying week. So looking forward to jumping on that and tailing success again.
Yeah, not just the better resume being 67%, as you said. The fading the first-time quarterback in the playoffs is also 67%. 2-1. Bo Nix and Sam Darnold both lost, and Jane Daniels covered.
Jaden's an anomaly. Jaden's an anomaly. He shouldn't be. He's going to be counted as a rookie, but he is well beyond his years right now.
Yeah, agreed. Who were the two teams of the better resume who didn't cover? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, let's take a look. So the better resume, Houston had a better. No, Houston covered. Houston did not have a better resume. Houston was 1-5 in my quote unquote games against top 500 or good teams or above average teams. At least they were 1-5 on the season with only one quality win. So that was a cover that didn't hit. And who else didn't hit? I think. Minnesota. Minnesota had a better resume throughout the season than the Rams, and of course they didn't hit. So those two teams did not cover their better resume status. So we went 4-2. And if you just tail the resume, you went 4-2. Obviously, we never want to just tail any trend, right? It's just something to look at. But for me, throughout the playoffs and when I handicap games throughout the season, I'm very into comparable games against comparable opponents and utilizing resume. We always talk about, oh, this is the best offense or that's the best defense. And those statistics get skewed based on quality or your schedule itself. So to really throw some games out, I think is a very strong way to handicap games, which of course we'll we'll talk about and disagree with throughout the show. But that's something that I always look for in the playoffs, is the first thing that I look at when I look at a matchup.
Yeah, interesting that the two teams with the resumes that didn't pan out were the two LA teams. And I thought that because we discussed this on Thursday because you came on. The Chargers, I was already on Houston. I felt even stronger about Houston after the whole wildfire thing. And then after seeing that game, I was like, okay, yeah, there's no way the Rams are going to be prepared for this game. And that just 2 days later, it seemed like they had this, like, I call it the Super Saiyan energy that they just had. Like, they have the LA Fire Department shirts. It seemed like, rather than contrary to the Chargers, who just were completely flat, like they were galvanized by the whole thing and like were willing to win one for the whole city or something. And they just played with so much for the fire, for the lack of a better word. Like they were just great against the Vikings. Like it seemed like they had all the answers, and it looked the Vikings were so flat in that game. And I talked about the Vikings, like their first half resume of the season was great. Like they beat the Niners back when the Niners didn't have that many injuries. Christian McCaffrey was out, but most of the other guys were in. Then they beat the Texans back when the Texans were playing well. And when the Texans had Stephon Diggs and Tank Dill and whatnot. And then just the second half of the season, they barely played any good teams until they played the Packers, and they beat the Packers. I think that threw me off. What you were saying before we started recording, you thought the Packers were overrated too. Like they just suffered more injuries against the Eagles. I don't think they would have won anyway, but they were already down Christian Watson. Then they lost Romeo Doubs. They lost Jaden Reed. They lost Elton Jenkins. They lost Josh Myers. It was the fourth quarter by then anyway, but they just had so many injuries. But still, the Vikings, like, I think a lot of people were surprised by that, but it's just killing me because I had the Rams when we did the show last week on Tuesday. And I changed my pick because of the wildfire stuff, especially after seeing the Chargers lay an egg, So I should have went for it.
I don't know that the LA situation really, was the determining factor. I mean, I chalk that game up more to Greg Roman. Herbert was bad. You don't expect that. I really think Herbert is a top quarterback. He certainly hasn't shown it. He certainly hasn't won big games. But Roman's play calling in that game was absolutely just a joke. They're down multiple scores in that game, and they're acting as if it was similar to the Vikings last night. They're down multiple scores in the fourth quarter, and there's no urgency. They're not getting to the line of scrimmage. They're letting the play clock run down, and then they're running the football. You're down multiple scores. You can't be running the football in the fourth quarter and just running clock. What's the goal of that play on 1st and 10 to run the ball to get 5 yards and run 30 seconds off the play clock? So I don't know that these games were really, the Rams were invigorated and the Chargers were flat because of the situation in LA. I think one coach had a really brutal game, Greg Roman. And on the other side, listen, Sam Darnold in big games. That's what we kind of expected going into the season. He was awful. That wasn't the offensive line. When you take 9 sacks in a game, at least half of those sacks where he's just seeing ghosts, right? That's the Sam Darnold old quote of "I was seeing ghosts" against Belichick. He's holding the ball and he's taking sacks. That's not the best defensive line in the league. Aaron Donald's not on that team anymore. I don't see Myles Garrett on that team. I don't see TJ Watt or Micah Parsons. Now, they have some really nice young players, but that's not a great D-line that should be worthy of getting 9 sacks. Darisaw or not, Darnold was atrocious. So those were the games where the resume didn't necessarily come to play. Clearly, Minnesota played above their skis throughout the season, Darnold especially, and then it just kind of came back to him. And I don't know what O'Connell was doing in that game. It's like O'Connell also, they're running the ball. I think I texted you at one point, are they still running the ball right now? They're down multiple scores. And then on 3rd down, he takes a sack for like a loss of 15. It's like, well, I guess that's why he's running the ball. He just knows that Darnold is just lost. So, and by then the game was over. They had nothing. They had nothing in that fourth quarter. There was no fight. I was really surprised though. So the one game I got wrong from a winner perspective was Houston. I really thought the Chargers were going to win that game. Sometimes we're a prisoner of our power ratings and looking at lines, and we'll certainly have those tonight to discuss. But I looked at that line and I said, Chargers -3. That implies that they're a significantly better team. And I didn't think they were a significantly better team. I thought they were the better team, worthy of being favored on the road, maybe 1.5. But You give me a 3 with a team that shouldn't be a dog by 3, and I picked the dog. And like I said, I got the game wrong, but my power ratings helped me be on the right side. So sometimes it's important to look at a game and at some point you're going to change your pick. Hey, I love so-and-so to win this week. Well, there's going to be a number that changes your opinion where all of a sudden you're on the other side. And that's the way it should be if you're handicapping numbers and not necessarily teams. So, but that was the one team that I thought the Chargers would win that didn't. Otherwise, nailed it pretty much every other game, just almost to a T. So it was a good week. It was a good week.
Yeah, I felt so stupid when Stafford just drove down the field because I made a big point about it. I'm like, the Vikings blitz the highest rate in the NFL. Stafford's amazing against the blitz. His completion percentage is actually higher when he's blitzed rather than when he's not. And I really emphasized that. And then I saw the Chargers lose, get massacred, really. And then I was like, okay, the Rams are not going to have any fight in them either. So I changed my pick to the Vikings, and that didn't end up working out too well. I would have went forward to instead of 3-3 had I just remained with my pick. But what are you going to do?
If you remember, maybe 2 or 3 minutes into the game, I'm notorious in my family and some of my friends. I'll text them, game start at 1:05. By 1:15, I text game to one of my super contest partners or to my dad or my brothers, watching a Niner game. 6 minutes into the game, there's the Evan text, game over. But sometimes I actually believe, I do it as a joke, but sometimes I really do believe it. Last night I texted you right after that first drive. The Rams drove down the field, scored, moved the ball with ease. And then on the next drive, they're sacking Darnold, right? They're getting to him. And I said to you, if they're going to get to Darnold like this, that was one of my keys to the game is the pass rush, just like Detroit got to Darnold. If they're going to get to Darnold, this game is going to be a long night. So I was immediately betting in that game, Rams -2.5, Rams -5.5, Rams -6.5. And I just kept going with the Rams, but I just never saw a scenario where Darnold actually had a lot of Darnold under yards, which I lost one of them. I had a 244.5 as my lowest under. And he got the ball back and he got the 245. But I had plenty of Darnold unders. I actually thought they were going to bench him at one point. I thought they were going to take him out of his misery and go to Mullins, and Darnold just didn't have it. But I guess at that point, O'Connell's like, listen, he got us here. The season is basically over, and he's stuck with Darnold. But where does Darnold go next year? He's certainly not going to be with Minnesota. Does anybody give him a multi-year contract after these last 2 games? I don't think so. I think he's playing a 1-year deal again.
All it takes is one dumb team to do it. You just need one dumb organization to make a move. And we've seen over the years teams overpay for bad players. I think that whichever team doesn't get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward or whoever else is out there in free agency, I think they're going to get a little trigger happy and just sign Darnold. I think
I'll give you a team, Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I don't see it, but that would be funny.
Yeah, I mean, look, I actually posted that question on Twitter. I'm like, which team overpays Darnold? And multiple people said the Raiders. The Raiders won themselves out of the top 2 picks. The fans in that Raiders-Falcons Monday night game, they even had signs. The fans held signs that said "Tank for Shedeur," and then they won their next 2 games after that. And I was kind of wondering what they did with those signs. But now, what do they do with quarterback? You can't go into the season with Aiden O'Connell again. And so really, do they try to talk Aaron Rodgers into going there? That doesn't seem great. I don't even know. They may have to overpay for Darnold, or maybe not a blatant overpay, but I think they're going to pay him more than he deserves. Because he still had a great season. He just had an awful playoff game. And he definitely cost himself some money for sure.
He cost himself a lot of money. He was probably in line for a 3-year, $80 to $100 million deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's getting 1 year right now in the low 20s.
Okay.
He had a great year, no question about it.
Yeah. Well, look, you can't underestimate the stupidity of teams. We were talking about how Mike McCarthy is never going to get a job again, and now he's the hot name on the market, which is unbelievable. All I see is Bears influencers on Twitter being like, "Oh, Mike McCarthy's coming here. This is great." Why? You're looking for those fake punts? It's so stupid. I guess I get it because they watched this guy win in Green Bay, but it wasn't really him winning. It was just he was accumulating wins because he had Aaron Rodgers. But I feel like the Bears fans are just probably like envious of the victories, and so
You can make a highlight reel of playoff Mike McCarthy coaching decisions. Zeke
Yep.
Elliott lining up at center.
Yep.
I mean, just he's so bad.
He's terrible, and he's going to get a head coach.
Bad and overrated coaches. Mike Tomlin is really at the top of that list. He's a great coach when you have a mediocre team that needs to wake up for a game where they're dogs. This guy is such a loser. Punting, kicking, field goals, no urgency. And every year the Steelers pay, and they have the top, one of the top defenses or top most highly paid defenses. And year in, year out, he gives the same speech. They go 9-8, they make the playoffs, and they lose in the first round. And his in-game coaching in these big games is just a joke. One game after another. I know you posted and you wrote today about how lifeless the Steelers looked. That's a product of being prepared. Just because they get prepared to play and they're dogs in a random game where they don't have great talent. Granted, they have a middle of the pack quarterback at best, and they show up and they go 9-8 every year. They make the playoffs. They're a 6 seed or a 7 seed every single year, and they don't compete in the playoffs. And at some point, he's not going anywhere. He's not getting fired. I'm not suggesting he should get fired, and he's not as bad as McCarthy is, but he's a loser. And there's a ceiling on these types of coaches that if I'm a fan base and I get a coach like that, I know my team's not going anywhere. Is my goal to win a Super Bowl or compete for a championship, or is my goal to be a 500 team every year? Because that's the worst thing you could be. You don't want to be a 500 team every year. And McCarthy's been good in the regular season. He's gotten his team ready to play. Their offense is generally pretty good in the regular season. And of course, he's had injuries and Dak's had injuries. But when it comes to a big game, you could always count on Coach Mack to fake punt on 4th and 14 on his own 25-yard line, or punt on a 4th and 1, or just something stupid, and then look around with like a look of confusion on his face. So, give me a Mike Vrabel type over these guys all day, or a Ben Johnson or a Campbell. Sometimes these crazy decision makers, he's aggressive. I'm actually surprised with Quinn this year with what he's doing in Washington with his aggressiveness. I didn't expect him to be this good of a coach, or the players like him the way they do and rally around him. So give him credit, and we'll see what he can continue to build there. But tell me that if I'm a Bears fan, I don't want McCarthy, I don't want Cliff Kingsbury, I don't want Brian Flores as my head coach. I don't want any of these guys. I'll roll the dice with a college coach, or roll the dice with a Ben Johnson type.
Or Jeff Fisher's G-Chuck is...
Jeff Fisher, yeah. Jeff Fisher.
He was Commander 500, and then he was like Commander 200. McCarthy is just so bad. I can't believe it. I'll push back on Tomlin a little bit. Like, I was very frustrated with him in that playoff loss. And yeah, he deserves criticism. But he's had some bad quarterbacking recently. He took Russell Wilson to 10-7 record. Like I don't know. I mean, like that end result was so disappointing against the Ravens. But like to get Russell Wilson to 10-7, I thought, like heading into this year, of course, Tomlin had the track record of never having a losing season. I thought this was going to be the year because Russell Wilson was so bad in Denver. I thought
I had the under 8.5.
Yeah, I thought Wilson was going to sabotage Tomlin, and that was going to be it for his pristine record. And no, he went 10-7. Like he got his team to the playoffs. So like he gets his teams into the playoffs. Like if he had a better quarterback, I think we'd be looking at this team a lot differently. But I don't know. I guess there is only
what? For years and years, they had probably the most talented team in the league. When Roethlisberger was at his height, they had Roethlisberger, Bell, and Brown.
Mm-hmm.
They had a very good defense, and they had arguably one of the best offenses in football. And year in, year out, they underachieved. And they were Tomlin. How many times was he a 9-10 point favorite that would lose outright to a team like the Browns when they were horrible, or the Raiders when they were horrible? Tomlin is the definition of your mediocre team. If you want a mediocre team, he's your guy. He's not going to go 4-13, but he's not going 12-5, winning the division anymore, and beating quality teams when it counts. Look at this game. This game was on. It was 4th and short, and he's punting in the first half. That's a Tomlin decision. That's not a Russell Wilson's good or bad. That's not my defense didn't show up to tackle. We're punting on 4th down. It's 4th and 1. We're punting. You can't make those coaching decisions. They didn't cross midfield in the first half of the game. At some point, you got to take a shot. You got to take a chance on 4th and short. That's on the coach.
Yeah, that punt was it was like waving the white flag. It
in the
was
second quarter.
yeah, it was horrible. I don't. It wasn't even 4th and 1. It was like 4th and inches, like inch.
Right.
Like
I
they
think
should
it
have
was
been
like
able to
four
get it.
finishes on the 29-yard line or something,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. They should have been able to get it. They punted away, and what happens is the Ravens drive down the field, get a touchdown on a drive in which they ran the ball every single play. I don't know what happened to TJ Watt. TJ Watt had the worst performance of his career, according to Pro Football Focus, like the worst ratings. I don't know if he was like sick or something, but that was pretty. It was bad overall for everyone involved. And yet the Steelers had a chance. They were at the 38-yard line. They had a chance to get the backdoor cover, and of course, like Najee Harris false starts, of course, and then Russell Wilson 4th down, game on the line, throws the triple coverage to Calvin Austin. It's like, all right, Calvin Austin's triple covered. Where's George Pickens? He's got to have like single coverage at that point, right? Like, why not just go to him? Like, why bomb it to Calvin Austin? Just didn't make any sense. But that was a frustrating a way to end the Saturday. But Sunday was better for me. Had the Bills, had the Eagles. The Sunday game was did leave a bad taste in my mouth because I had a couple units on the Buccaneers who they fumbled the game away. Like the Baker Mayfield fumble where he tried to give the end around to Jalen McMillan, and then the center fumbled or center like botched a snap, forcing a field goal. As soon as they kicked that field goal, I'm like, this game's over. Like they're not seeing the ball again. And that was very painful for my props. I had Bucky Irving over 87.5 rushing yards. And had they had another possession, I think he could have gotten there. Had Jalen McMillan over receiving yards. He needed like 10 more. So he could have gotten there. And the Buccaneers like barely held the ball in that game. They had the ball for like 24 minutes or something. Yeah.
Baker Mayfield had 7 drives and 185 yards on 18 pass attempts.
Yeah.
I could get 15 more freaking yards on a $100 bet that pays 700 to 1.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah. It's
that was on Washington, and I guess I'm happy that they won. I've been riding this team all year, as you know. One of the things we talked about also was only 6 games, right? There were 2 games last week that would have been quote unquote contest picks. So obviously we went back and forth on Baltimore. That was one of my favorite bets. And Washington opened 3.5, which I bet immediately, and then it closed, ended up at 3 the entire week. But those were 2 games where those would have been, contest picks, contest worthy picks. Whereas the other games, I was like, on the fence. Rams maybe would have gotten there had I not had the situation with LA. I thought they should have been favored to start the game before anything. 2 weeks ago when we came out with the spreads, I thought the Rams would have been favored like they were in the game when they played back in, I think it was like week 8. So, but that I would have gotten off of that as a bet with the scenario that they're dealing with. Eagles, Packers, I didn't love. And of course, the Texans, I thought there was value, but it certainly wasn't worthy of a bet. This week, there's a game that I think the line is just utterly outrageous and would be not only a contest pick, but would be one of my bigger bets of the year. So sometimes, it's only 4 games or only last week 6 games. So you don't want to go too crazy, but sometimes the lines just feel like they're way, way off, and you just got to take advantage.
Okay, I can't wait to find out what this game is. Before we get there, Patrick's posted just rewatch season 1 of Severance and prep for season 2. Even better on second watch, gives me something to watch in NFL games. There's boring as the last 6 games. Have you ever watched Severance? It was fantastic. The first season.
I don't watch a lot of TV during the NFL season.
Well, it's been out for a while. I think it came out like 2 years ago or something, maybe 3 years ago. It's on Apple TV. It's really good. We'll talk about it later, but it's a great show. I'm happy that season 2 is coming around because season 1 was awesome. All right, let's get to the games. The first one is Texans at the Chiefs. This line is either 8 or 8.5, depending where you look. I'm kind of curious if this is the game in which you think the line is way off, because if you look at the prior matchup between these teams, they met in week 16. It was Texans the Chiefs. The Chiefs are only -3, and now it's ballooned to 8 or 8.5. Now the Chiefs have had a bye. Andy Reid historically really good off a bye. Off a bye, he is 19-11 against the spread. This includes the playoff byes too in his career. So I am going to back the Texans. I've been talking about the Texans, how I think that like they have some comparisons to the 2008 Arizona Cardinals. That Cardinals team was so terrible down the stretch. Like everyone thought they were just going to bomb in the playoffs. They had a game against the Patriots in Week 17 that year. They lost 47-7. This is the divisional winner. They won their division early. They had nothing to play for at the end, and so they just had these horribly lackluster games. So they just got blown out. The Texans the same way. They in Week 17 against the Ravens, they lost 31-2. Like they looked absolutely pathetic. But ever since they beat the Colts the second time, they haven't had to play with any sense of urgency. They won the playoffs. They weren't going to get the first round bye. They just really had nothing to play for. They were just going through the motions. And so they got blown out a couple of times because of that. And the same thing happened to the Cardinals. What happened to the Cardinals? They won their Week 18 game against a crappy Seattle team, which, Houston did against Tennessee. In the first round of the playoffs, they beat Matt Ryan, good quarterback. The Texans beat Justin Herbert, a good quarterback. Second round of the playoffs, the Cardinals went on the road to Carolina. They were big underdogs, and they ended up beating Carolina. Now, this Chiefs team is obviously much better than that Carolina team. But I'm not expecting the Texans to win this game. But I think they could keep it close. The Texans or the Chiefs have had issues stopping the pass this year. They're great against run. They're bad against the pass. So I think Nico Collins could have a good game. They're also terrible against tight ends, so Dalton Schultz should do well. But the Chiefs' biggest weakness is their tackle play, and Houston has elite edge rushers. They should be able to give Patrick Mahomes some trouble in the backfield, and I think that they should be able to keep this game like low scoring and close. So I like them here, and plus the Chiefs. Ever since forgetting the last couple games of the season when they had a disinterest in the Texans and the crappy Steelers, they've only won by margin this margin 8+. 3 times this year, against the Saints, wherein Derek Carr got hurt, the Browns when Jameis Winston threw a bunch of interceptions, and the Niners who had a bunch of injuries in that game. So like this Chiefs team, like granted they play better in the playoffs, but they just haven't won by margin very often this year. And so I don't know if they could just win by margin right away. Like who knows? Maybe they'll just kill the Texans, but I think Houston can keep this game close. And so I like Houston here. What do you think?
So when I talk about resumes, of all the teams in the playoffs, Houston was the team with the worst resume with that 1-5 record, the only win coming on the game against Buffalo where they blew a lead and then won at the buzzer. So this was their second win of the season against the quote unquote good team. And, we talked about whether or not the Chargers were distracted or if it was just Greg Roman with a terrible, terrible game plan. But at the beginning of this game was really disappointing from a Houston perspective. They had 0 points. They did nothing offensively until basically the last 2 minutes of the half, where they had like a 3rd and 16. They're on their own 17-yard line. It's 6-0. The ball goes over Stroud's shoulder, right? And it's like, now this game is going to be out of hand. This ball is going to be, recovered in the end zone. But the ball bounces right up to him. He makes a great throw. Xavier Hutchinson downfield, picks up a big gain, and they get a touchdown. It's like all of a sudden now they're awake. Chargers, of course, go 3 and out, punt, and now next thing you know, Texans drive the field. It's 10-6 at halftime. So, then just Herbert was handing them points. So maybe that awakened them a little bit. Maybe now they're ready to go on a little bit more of a competitive run. I will say their defense has been really, really good. Lassiter and Stingley might be the best corner tandem in the league. Lassiter's like every time I watch this guy, he makes play after play after play. He was really, really good, and you're going to need that. Not necessarily you're not shutting down the top receivers, but these guys can play coverage and allow Anderson and Danielle Hunter to get to work. And that, like you said, is the weakness of Kansas City. When they played in Week 16, this week they had 22 pressures on Herbert. And if they can get 22 pressures on Mahomes, even if Mahomes scrambles, and we know he's going to scramble, we know he's going to make plays with his legs, but he doesn't want to get hit, right? If you knock him around, if you hit him, this game could be frustratingly close. And if Kansas City comes out there and, plays with their food, doesn't necessarily take advantage, kicks field goals, tries to get too cute with some of the trick plays and the red zone trickery that they do, and all of a sudden it's field goals, this game could be a very low-scoring game. By the way, last week, 6 games, 6 unders. So I think there might be a little bit of a regression to some overs. And this total is like 42 points. So I think this is going to be a lower-scoring game. And I look at power ratings. So in this game, I agree with the line. I don't think the line is outrageous. I think 7.5 is the right number. But like you, I think Houston will keep this game close. Now, in that game, I went back and I watched that game. Houston was -2 in turnovers, right? So they had 2 turnovers. Kansas City, of course, 0. And late in the game, they had the ball first and goal at the 10-yard line. with a chance to possibly tie the game. And it was one of those like weird things. Stroud is he's under pressure, he's running around, and he runs out of bounds for like a 5-yard loss instead of throwing the ball away. Obviously, he's on the sidelines, so he's out of the tackle box. There's a mental dumb play to run out of bounds and take a loss of 5. They ended up with a penalty, and they ended up going backwards. So they had a real shot to potentially tie this game. And so the back door is open, and I think the game will be close. And who's the best team in the league in running out the clock? Whether you need 2 minutes, 4 minutes, or 6 minutes, it's Mahomes. So if there's a situation where it's 24-17 late or something in that ballpark, I think Kansas City can easily get the ball back, and Stroud will never see the ball again. So I like the points here. I would take Houston with the points. I do not think Houston will win this game. I think this game could be very close. They certainly could have a lead. If Kansas City needs to score, we know what they'll do. We know they're going to move the ball downfield. We know the refs might make a call, give them a PI. Mahomes gets hit out of bounds or barely out of bounds. You're going to get 15 yards for that. So we know where the refs will be. We know that Mahomes and Andy Reid, if they're down, can move the ball. And we also know that if they're ahead, they're the best team in the NFL running out the clock. So I like the points here. I think this game is a touchdown game, maybe a 4-point game, somewhere in that ballpark. I do think it's low scoring, but I think that I think it's like a 24-20 type of game, something like that. But I do like taking the 7.5, but Kansas City is going to win. So if you're playing this game, either take the points, and now you're going against Mahomes, or you use Kansas City in a teaser, because I don't see Kansas City losing.
Yeah, I don't either. I believe the official for this game is Clay Martin. I read somewhere that the Chiefs have never lost straight up when he's been the official. Now, to be fair, the Chiefs have seldom lost anyway. But I just right. saw that. I saw that stat. I'm like, wait, the Chiefs don't really lose anyway. So still,
and we don't need to go through Kansas City's resume. We all know, how many of those games were absolute coin flips. So I think that could be a very similar game here, where they win on a last-second field goal, or they're up 20-10, they give up a field goal late, and now it's 20-13 or 23-16, and Mahomes gets the ball, and that's it. 6-minute drive, 6.5-minute drive, 3rd and 2, 4th and 2. He's going to run a little RPO. He'll hit Kelsey over the middle. Hollywood Brown, that was his first game in Week 16. He came back. He had a couple of big plays. Also, Tank Dell was great in that game until he got hurt. Yeah. So without him in that game, it's going to be hard for Stroud to really move the ball. But I don't think either team is putting up much more than 24. So I think when you have a lower scoring game and a team like Kansas City that knows how to play the clock, laying the points here is something I wouldn't do. So I like the game's close, but Kansas City will find a way to win.
Yeah, Metro Tank Dell. Chiefs have been really bad this year against number 2 receivers. Also last year. So, not having Tank Dell or Stephon Diggs, that makes it tougher for Houston. Maybe John Mechie could have a good game.
He had a couple of drops this week. He wasn't.
Yeah, he did. He had 8 targets, though. So,
you know what? Better game? Slowick.
Yeah.
He didn't come out running the ball as much. So that was good.
Yeah, I think that was the long con we were talking about, where like he intentionally punted the whole season just to set things up for the playoffs. That'd be funny though, true. Slu saying, I'm having Texans flashbacks from last year's playoffs. They routed the Browns and they got smoked by the Ravens. History.
Yeah, I remember that. And I looked at that again, and I don't know. I think these are different teams. Baltimore is a team that will run up the score on you, whereas Kansas City has no interest in running up the score. They're very, very methodical, and they have a history of doing exactly what they need to do to win the game. They need 6 yards, they're getting you 7, right? Mm-hmm. So I think this is the type of game where they take care of business. They're not looking to run up the score. I don't think weather is going to be much of a factor this week. No, that's not true. Weather could be a factor in Philly. Here, it's just going to be cold. It's not going to be like last year where you had Miami going in. It was like sub 10, minus 20 wind chill. I don't think you're going to get that here, but I just think this game is going to be close. Houston's defense is really good. I really like what they're doing, both on the back end and on the line. Yeah. They can hang. They can make this game an ugly game.
Yeah. The only problem with Houston's defense during the regular season was that they led the NFL in missed tackles. But I think that had to do with the lack of urgency they had in the second half of the season, because for a while they weren't among the league leaders in missed tackles, but they just climbed steadily in the second half of the season. And I think it was just because they really weren't playing for much. For a while, it was the Colts and the Jets were leading the league in missed tackles. Then suddenly Houston just spiked up, and I think it's because they just stopped playing hard.
One more thing about this game, when week 16, one of the things that I watched, and you forget about these plays. There's a couple of key plays in every game. They had a sack on Mahomes where he fumbled and the ball was scoop and score, and the refs threw a flag for roughing.
Oh yeah,
It was one of those ridiculous calls where Mahomes barely got touched, and not only did they overturn the call, the touchdown, but they gave him 15 yards to boot. I mean, just one of those crazy plays that changes everything in that game. So I think this game is going to be really close, really good game. I just don't think, listen, when it comes down to it, when you have Mahomes at home against Stroud doesn't know how to, he might get a game go-ahead drive, but he doesn't know how to finish like Mahomes does. Mahomes knows how to play the clock to perfection. So it would be very surprising to me if Mahomes has the ball and they end up punting late, or has 4 downs to score and doesn't get what he needs. Mm-hmm. So that's where I go with this game.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I saw Texans plus 8.5 a day or two ago. Thinking teaser. Well, Chiefs down to 2.5 from my 8.5 to 2.5. But yeah. We'll talk about some other teaser legs. You can put the Chiefs with. Let's get to the Saturday night game. We have Redskins at the Lions. This line is either 9 or 9.5, depending on where you look. I think every year, well, like every 2 years or so, there's usually a team that wins in the first round of the playoffs that didn't deserve to kind of like be there. I was thinking I think the most famous example of this was the 2011 Broncos, who beat the Steelers in the playoffs, and then the next round they had the Patriots, and then they got destroyed. A couple of years ago, I think the most recent example of this was the Giants when they were the 6th seed and they went into Minnesota and won. And then the next round against the Eagles, they lost 38-7. I was like trying to figure out if there was a team like that this week. And I think it might be the Redskins, just because I just look at, you talk about resumes. Like, I'm not really impressed with their resume. Like, the only good win they've had this year above teams that are in group A or B was against the Eagles the second time, and Jalen Hurts got a concussion in the first quarter of that game. Outside of that, they've beaten nothing but Group C or Group D or Group F teams. Really, the other teams they played in Group A or Group B, they lost by 14. Well, they're down by 14 to the Ravens before a backdoor touchdown, or the backdoor push to get a touchdown to 7. They lost to the Eagles in a blowout, and then they lost to the Steelers at home. And we've seen how bad the Steelers have been since. The Lions, by contrast, against Group A and Group B this year, they're 5-1. They beat the Packers twice. They beat the Vikings twice. They beat the Rams. The only team they lost to in those two groups of the Bills. So nothing to be ashamed about there. However, I was like, yeah, I'm going to take the Lions. And then I just didn't feel like this matchup is just, or at least one of the matchups in this game is so favorable for the Redskins. And it's because the Lions can't stop mobile quarterbacks. We've seen it so many times over the years. They just get gashed by these mobile quarterbacks. And obviously Jaden Daniels is one of them. And so my fear is that the Lions will be comfortably ahead. They'll be up by double digits for most of the game, but in the end, it'll kind of be like that Baltimore game where Washington gets a backdoor cover with Jaden Daniels, and they lose by like 7 instead of 14. And so the Redskins get the cover. So it's the only game I'm not planning on betting right now. I just think that if it wasn't for that mobile quarterback matchup, I think the Lions would crush the Redskins. But I think that Jaden Daniels could give them some problems. The Lions have had injuries in their defense. And so I think that could it just screams backdoor cover, I think. So what do you think about this game?
So resume-wise, you're right. Obviously, Detroit 8-2, 11 quality games, one of the best teams in the league, and deservedly so. Washington now only 4-4 against good teams. So you're right. They're not winning these games, but they are covering these games, right? And that's all you really care about. That's what you care about, but when you're betting a game against a spread, they don't have to win this game. I wanted to point out the Jaden Daniels passing chart last week. Now, obviously, we talked about the Bucs don't have the best defense, the best secondary. Of course, Kirk Cousins put up 500 yards in a game against them. But I always make fun of guys like Tua or even Bo Nix, although Bo Nix may have changed the narrative on some of his deep balls. Guys who just throw the ball, at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage. Everything is short. Jaden Daniels was 7 for 12 for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns when he was under pressure this week. He had a PFF grade in that scenario of 91, which is insane. On his intermediate throws, his 10 to 19 yards downfield, 8 for 8, 124 yards and 2 more touchdowns. There was a tweet that somebody put out, and I can't remember who put it out. I think it was Evan Abrams of the Action Network. So try to give the guy credit. Jaden Daniels has more games in his career where his team has 0 punts and 0 turnovers, including the playoffs, where he has 3, than the combined careers of Brady, Montana, and Manning and Mahomes. That's insane, right? That means a couple of things. First of all, Quinn, aggressive play calling. They're going for 4th downs, which is what you want to see. By going for 4th downs against the Falcons, they turned 4 4th down attempts into 14 points. They were 2 for 4. So instead of kicking 4 field goals, which are, of course, with Zane Gonzalez not automatic anyway, he's taking points. This week, they're going for it. They didn't get it on the first drive, but they got a couple of them. That's very important. So you see when he's not punting, they're going for 4th downs. And 0 turnovers, one of the handicaps that I said last week with the Bucs game was 2 things. Number one, it was going to come down to conversions, 3rd and 4th down, that both quarterbacks have a huge edge running. Baker had an amazing 3rd and long conversion with his legs, I think in the second quarter, late first half. And of course, Jaden had a couple of amazing conversions to keep the game, to keep the clock moving, to keep the ball, and the aggressiveness. And then from a turnover perspective, Jaden doesn't turn the ball over. And Baker, I said, does. So yeah, it's a fluky fumble, especially on an exchange. But that's something that Baker has put the ball in harm's way throughout the year, and Daniels does not. So that's a really, really important statistic to pay attention to. He's really good. He's well above his years. He's well ahead of the curve when you say, he's a rookie quarterback now going on the road, 2nd straight week. You're right. They of course, could get blown out. The Lions are a worthy team to put up major points. And, of course, from a matchup perspective, you have the Detroit running game. Washington's obviously not very good against run, although Tampa's a very good running team too. And I think they did a pretty nice job last week against the rush. So that's something to keep an eye on. But Washington, if they're going to convert 3rd and 4th downs, if they can keep the ball, if they can maintain possession, and that's something that can maybe shorten the game or, of course, continue to put points on the board, it's not like Detroit's defense is that great. Now, the last time we saw them, they dominated Sam Darnold. So right now we're going to throw that game out the window because, well, Sam Darnold's not playing at that kind of level. I don't think they're going to get that kind of pressure. And if they do, Daniels will make them pay for it. So this is not like this team is not going to be able to put up points. And of course, the Lions are going to put up points. We know that. The one thing I would say about the Redskins putting up points is Brian Robinson is atrocious. He's atrocious on the goal line. He's atrocious in short yardage. And they constantly give him possession after possession where they give him chances. And he's proven time and time again that he stinks on the goal line and he can't get 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. So it's good to go for it, but you also have to call the right plays, execute accordingly. I mean, Greg Roman and Herbert, they're throwing 4th and 2. They run a 1-yard out pattern to Quentin Johnson, and that just doesn't make sense. And if it's 4th and 1, you just can't give the ball to B-Rob. So that doesn't work. But here's now where I look at power ratings. Detroit last week was favored by 3 2 weeks ago against Minnesota. I believe Washington is better than Minnesota. Now, I also believe that line of 3 was the wrong line, which is why it was one of my contest picks. I make this game 6.5. When I see 9.5, this line is outrageous. This is one of the crazier lines I've ever seen. Why all of a sudden is Detroit favored by 10 points or 9.5 points? By the way, this line opened 10.5 at the Westgate and was immediately bet down to 9.5. I saw 8.5, so now I see 9.5. I think it's purely for teaser protection. I don't think the books want you taking a 6-point teaser with Kansas City and Detroit because I think both teams are going to win. I would be surprised. I'd be very surprised if Houston won. I wouldn't be shocked if Washington won, but it would surprise me because I think at the end of the day, Detroit will find a way with the home crowd to do what they need to do to win this game. But this game is going to be close. And I don't see why all of a sudden now you're giving Washington, a team that is 11-6 against the spread. They backdoored against Baltimore on the road. They lost by 7. They lost the game to the Eagles, the first matchup, by somewhat of a margin. And the second one will throw out, like you mentioned, Hurts got hurt. But this team is covering every single week. They're a live team to score a lot of points against a not good defense. Detroit's defense is not a good defense. They're opportunistic. Kirby Joseph leads the league in picks. They may make some plays here and there. But if Jaden protects the ball, Detroit's not getting those picks. And if Washington's going for 3rd and 4th down, if they're converting 3rd and 4th down, I think this game is going to be an absolute shootout. I have this game 35-31. Like I said, Detroit's gone to my head. Detroit's going to win the game. This game is not going to be a blowout. This is not going to be a 35-14 game. They're not holding Washington to 13, 14 points. Washington's going to put up 21, 24, 27 points. And that's if it's again, like the Bucs game, a 7-8 possession game. But if there are big plays in this game, which I think there will be on both sides of the ball, I think the winner of this game needs to get the 30, 31 points. So I think this game's a shootout. I think this line is absurd that it's over a touchdown. Detroit just went from being -3 against Minnesota to -9.5 against a better opponent. Makes absolutely no sense. I love the Redskins in this game. Love it. And I usually don't say that about a playoff game. And I am concerned, like with what you said, a team that looked good last week, now going on the road for a second straight week after looking good against the best team in the league or one of the best teams in the league, but they're not the best defense in the league. And if Washington protects the ball, Detroit, that crowd can get really nervous. If that game is a 4-point game, late, 6-point game, 7-point game, I wouldn't want to be on the other side. I wouldn't want to be in that Detroit crowd. That's going to be a dangerous spot to be in. Detroit, we've seen them give up a lot of points. They gave up 34 points to the Niners. They gave up over 40. Of course, Buffalo's a better offense. 48 to Buffalo. This game has the potential to be an absolute shootout. I love it. I can't wait for it. I'm excited about it. 35-31. I love the points.
Yeah, we have a similar score. I'm a 34-28. John saying Minnesota wasn't exposed yet, though. They weren't aware of Walter's letter system rating. Well, the fans were. The fans certainly were. I had a lot of exchanges with Viking fans on Twitter, and I had a lot of fun trolling them after they got absolutely humiliated by the Rams. That was a lot of fun. I love your argument here for the Redskins. I was kind of wondering if this would be your offline. I was thinking about it, and I was like, I knew you loved the Redskins all year, and it kind of makes sense here. Yeah, you're right. The line is definitely too high.
Got to stick to the Redskins. I mean, I've been on this quarterback now for 2 years, and it's a bet on Washington's offense scoring points against the Lions defense. That's really what it comes down to. The line makes no sense at all, and I have the Lions power rated really high. I have the Lions power rated at a +7.5, which is a very big number, generally speaking. And I have the Redskins down at a 3. Which is also a nice number. They're an above-average team. There's no question they're an above-average team. Now, you're right. They don't have the real signature wins, but they're in the games, and they're playing well, and they're scoring. And I just don't see how this line gets above a touchdown. I really don't. I wouldn't be concerned teasing, like someone wrote there, taking a money line parlay. You're probably not getting the best payout with a money line parlay of Chiefs and Lions just because the books are killing. That's why the line is what it is. They're killing the public to make this line as high as they possibly could to protect against the 6-point teasers. They do not want you taking a 7.5-point spread down to 1.5 and playing basically a pick 'em spot. So that's why the line is what it is. It's not because it belongs at 9.5. It really belongs at 7, but they're just protecting themselves on those money line bets. But This game's gonna be close. I'd be very surprised if this game were a blowout.
Well, I don't care much. I don't know how much you care about this, but the EPA numbers they're even more bullish on the Redskins. They said this line should be Lions -3, which was the Minnesota line.
That's unfair to the Lions.
Yeah, that was the Minnesota line. So I don't know. I mean, these tend to be little off sometimes.
Well, the over-under in the game is 55, right? So that's telling you that they expect the game to be basically 31-23, right? Something in that ballpark. 30. Mm-hmm. Nobody is expecting 32 or 33 points. Those are dead numbers. So your Lions bet would be like over 31.5. And Washington will probably be in that 23.5 to 24.5 ballpark. And that's what I really like in this game. I like Washington to put up points. Now, I don't know that I could trust Washington to stop Detroit either. This game could be 48-42 also. This game, like Sunday night's game, I thought would be the best game of the weekend. Of course, it was. This is going to be the best game of the weekend. Mm-hmm. I think this game is going to be awesome.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see if Detroit can figure out this mobile quarterback thing. That's been a huge problem for them. John asking, what's the record of 1 seeds ATS since they moved to the playoffs in the new format in 2020?
Somebody asked me that. I went back, and I don't know the record off the top of my head, but there's not enough sample size.
Yeah, it's what an 8-game sample size so far, or no, 6-game sample size. Because the first time this happened was 2021, if I remember correctly, right?
Was that Tennessee-Baltimore? No, Tennessee-Baltimore was 2020.
Yeah. So 2021 onward. Let's see. I don't know. I could probably type it in. How do you think they've done? Do you think the number 1 seeds have done well?
I think they've done very well. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, against the spread.
Yeah.
You have to look against the spread. You have to see if the lines are 7 or more. Last year, Jaguars, Chiefs won by 7. They didn't cover. Sorry, that wasn't last year. That was 2 years ago. I'll tell you last year. Give me a second. Last year, Baltimore blew out the Texans.
I have the numbers. I have the overall numbers.
The Niner Packers game was close.
Here, I'll put it up right here. Where is it? Here we go. Okay, so here it is. So 4-2 straight up, 2-4 against the spread. The Titans lost to the Bengals the first time, and the Packers they lost to the 49ers there. So 0-2 off the bat. Then the Chiefs beat the Jaguars. They did not cover. The Eagles crushed the Giants. We discussed that recently. The Ravens destroyed the Texans.
They destroyed them. The Niners played close.
The Packers missed the field goal.
So 2-4 against the spread. Okay, good. I mean, again, the sample size doesn't mean a damn thing.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's 6-game sample size. There's not much to read off. Even if you triple it, like it's still a small sample size at that point. I mean, I think you convinced me to take Washington here. Jane Daniels' rush attempts is still 9.5, even after wrecking the past 2 games.
That's an unbelievable bet, and we'll talk about that. Just teasing ahead, you can get those quarterback over rushing yards attempts throughout the game. We hit a couple, and then I think I told you to take Baker. He just didn't get the damn ball back again. Josh Allen's going to have a lot of rushes. His rush prop will probably be like 8.5, 9.5. Jaden will be up there. The design runs are built in. You're going to get at least 4 or 5 design runs. You also have the 4th and 1 QB sneaks that you'll get, and you get the scrambles. It's a no-brainer. The books can't just, again, it's all algorithm. The books can't make the line 15.5. It just doesn't make sense. No. But it wouldn't shock me if they get 10 to 15 carries. Because, again, you're going to get those 5 or 6 design runs from these quarterbacks. You have to. And then they're scrambling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The quarterbacks run more in the playoffs because there's more urgency. Like, I mean, Josh Allen, he said it himself. He said he's going to run less frequently to start the season and to preserve his legs. And then late in the season, he was going to run a lot. And that's what most of these quarterbacks do. In big games during the regular season and playoff games, they run way more than they usually do. And you're right, like, the algorithms can't keep up or they don't recognize it. So.
And there's a comment here. You get kneel downs. Excellent point.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, they count as well. All right. Yeah. So definitely like the Jane Daniels rushing, especially against the Lions. All right. Let's move on to the Sunday games. The first game, 3:00. Rams at the Eagles. This line was 5. It's now 6. So there might be weather. You kind of alluded to this earlier. I checked. Looks like 23% chance of rain. It's been cold here in Philly, so not ideal for a dome team. If it doesn't rain, it's not going to be that bad. But if it rains, that's really not ideal for a team that relies on the pass so much. This is a much different matchup for Matthew Stafford. I talked about last week how I loved the Rams before the wildfire stuff, and it was all about the blitz. The Vikings blitz at the highest rate in the NFL. Stafford is amazing against the blitz. Higher completion percentage when blitz compared to when not blitz, which is unheard of. However, he is not as good when pressured and not blitzed. So it's generally when you're talking about how to stop these great passing quarterbacks, you want to rush them with 4 guys and then drop 7 into coverage, and that's the magic formula to beating these guys. That's how the Giants beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. They rushed him like hectically with 4 guys, and they just covered everything underneath. So that is what the Eagles do. The Eagles blitz so infrequently. There are only 4 teams that blitzed less frequently than they did during the regular season. So they're not going to send extra rushers to Stafford. So Stafford's not going to have that edge. And the Eagles have owned the Rams the past 2 matchups. They won by 17-9 against them the past 2 years, and the receivers were healthy in both those games. I just feel like the Eagles are just have a great edge here matchup wise. Every time the Rams have played a Group A team, they've faltered, except for the Bills. The Bills win. The Bills is the victory against the Bills is the one time they've stepped up in class and won. But Buffalo's coming off a flat spot. They're coming off that crazy snow game against the Niners on Sunday Night Football. They were flat. I remember just thinking they might be flat, and like they were. And it was pretty obvious. Outside of that, the Rams haven't stepped up. Class of one. They've lost to the Lions twice in the past couple of years. They lost to the Eagles twice past couple of years. Just every time they play an elite team, they just don't come through. And so I don't think they will here. And so if this is a weather game, that's going to make it even more favorable for the Eagles. But I just love the Eagles to win this game by margin. Jalen Hurts have a rough game. I think he's going to rebound because he's another week removed from his concussion. And the last time these teams played, Saquon Barkley rushed for 255 yards. Rams' run defense is not terrible, but it's not good. And I think that Barkley could have another good game. So, and I also think A.J. Brown could bounce back because this could be a squeaky wheel against the grease situation because he only had 10 receiving yards last week. So I love it. Yeah, of course. And I hope someone sends him my book, one of my books. So anyway, I love the Eagles here. What do you think?
I'm having a hard time with this game. This to me is a very, very difficult game to handicap. I think there's a lot of factors that will go into it. Now, both of these teams, with their wins, have 7 quality games on the season. Philly's now 7-3, Rams 6-3 against good teams. I know you like your group A, so I hear that. Matchup wise, Philly, the number 1 yards per play defense. They're also number 1 versus the pass, pretty good against the run. Rams, you mentioned, below average rushing team, and generally speaking, I have them at number 23 against the run, and that was the matchup that killed them in that week. Week 12? In that week 12 game. Now, their game plan against Minnesota last night, I thought was great. I mean, at one point, they had 15 passes and 2 runs, so they know what works. McVay, he knows how to get this team ready. Now, Cooper Kupp is a shell. I don't know what happened to Cooper Kupp. I was watching that game that they played in week 12, and just over the last couple of weeks, Cooper Kupp is just non-existent. Now, but if they come out, this is a veteran team. They know how to game plan. Maybe Hurts was just another week removed from his brain injury. He looked awful last week. He looked lost. So I don't know what to expect. I mean, I expect him to be better than what he was last week, but he was terrible last week. Now, going back to that game a couple of weeks ago, the difference, of course, obviously, was the rushing. Philly had 45 carries for 314 yards, 3 touchdowns. Of course, Saquon broke 2 in the second half, 1 for 70, 1 for 72 yards. It's like an Air Force game, 45 carries in a game. Also, Hurts was barely pressured, so it's not going to be what the Rams got last night. Pressure or not, they're not going to be sacking Hurts, more than 2 or 3 times, if at all. He took 1 sack in the game last time. Also in that game in week 12, the Rams were 0 for 8 on third down. They were in the middle of a stretch. I was going through this week by week where they just could not pick up a third down, and Philly on the other side was 9 for 15. So I'm looking at this game like, okay, what's going to really be the key factor? Obviously, can the Rams stop the run? If the answer to that question is no, they have no shot. This game won't be close. And can they protect Stafford? Stafford was pressured 13 times in that game. He took 5 sacks. He was not good on he was 1 for 7 passing the ball for 8 yards, where he actually got the ball off under pressure. So if they can get to Stafford and they can run the football, you're right. This game is going to be ugly. And of course, the weather is a big factor. If it rains, obviously favors Philly. And then coming off of this emotional win with the Fires now going back to LA, I don't know what kind of distractions that causes. So there's so many factors that says if they can't stop the run, which they didn't last time, if they can't protect Stafford, which they didn't last time, if the weather is poor, it favors Philly. If they're distracted, we're not distracted. They're coming off this emotional high, and now they're coming back down to earth. They got to travel on a short week. They have an early game. They probably got back to LA last night, 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Late getting into week preparation. But they are a veteran team, and when I look at my power ratings, all things aside, my power ratings don't make this game 6. That's why I'm conflicted here. It's like everything tells me and screams the Eagles are the right side. The Eagles are going to win this game going away. This game is not going to be as close as I think it'll be. But I got a veteran team, and I got a spread that I think 6 is pushing it a little bit. So my gut tells me that the Rams will keep the game close. But this is more like my pick last week where I got wrong. The only game that I really got wrong was I was on the Broncos, because I thought in that Broncos game that I thought the Broncos would come out early. And if the Broncos take a lead early, which they did, I'm a little concerned laying points with the Bills if they're trailing in the game. So I'm not rushing to lay the Eagles -6. I'm not necessarily rushing to bet the Rams either. So I keep going back and forth. I don't really have a pick in the game. That's kind of my thought process, though. Again, comes down to whether or not they can protect Stafford and stop Barkley. So if you answer those two questions, you have the answer to the game.
If you had to pick for pool purposes,
if I had to pick for pool purposes, my gut tells me that 6 is high. If the line were so, I used this as a contest pick back in week 12. I had the Eagles -3, and I thought that was a good number. I thought they were going to win the game. I do think the Eagles are going to win the game. So if you say who's going to win the game, I like the Eagles to win the game at home. But I don't like the way Hurts played last week. And I don't know if he's going to be that much better. We don't know enough about brain injuries to determine what he's seeing or how he's feeling or what he's looking at. If the rain is really if it rains, and we don't know right now what the weather is going to be, but if it's going to rain and they're going to stack the box and they're going to sell out, to stop Saquon, and they're going to make Hurts throw the ball, that doesn't lead to a high scoring Eagles output. I would like my chances defensively if Saquon's not getting the ball. But if Saquon's getting the ball and they can't stop him and he's running, he doesn't have to run for 255. If he runs for 160 or 140, it's going to give them a huge edge in the game. And then, of course, can they protect Stafford? If they can't protect Stafford, the Rams are not going to score. So I think the line is a little high, but I do think the Eagles are going to win the game. So from a pool perspective, it's a cop-out. It's not a great pick to say, yeah, I like the points because I don't want to lay the points with Hurts. But you'll know real quick early in that game, if they can't stop the run and they can't protect Stafford, I'm going to be live betting the Eagles to lay the points, to cover, to lay, whatever. It doesn't matter. And I'll be live betting Rams unders because that's what I like more. I like this game to be a lower scoring game. I don't think the Rams are going to put up that many points. I think this game is going to be like a 20-17 type of game, 23-17, 23-16, right around that number. Mm-hmm. I like McVay. McVay's a great coach, and I think Stafford, as a veteran quarterback, makes plays like the job that he did just getting rid of that ball yesterday. It's such a joke rule that he can flick his wrist and throw the ball forwards to nobody, and that counts as Puka Nacua was in the area. But when I went back and watched the game earlier, Puka was open all game, and he had some great throws to Puka on the move. They got him out in space. Kyren Williams had a nice game. That game was, it was actually 37-14 late in the game. So I was about to say the score was closer. The game was closer than the score. But that game was actually a really close game in the first half. Like the Rams were up 7-3 late in the first half. And there were some random plays, some calls that went in the Rams, that went against the Rams, that moved them backwards. They ended up, they had a first down at the 11 or 12 yard line that could have cut the lead. They were down 27-14 at the time. They ended up getting a first down at the 11. They went backwards and missed a field goal. So these are things that, those sequences could have went the other way, and the game is a much closer game than 37-20. And of course, giving up those late, that was a 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 carry. They're trying to run out the clock, and Saquon just breaks one for 70 yards. So untouched for 72 yards. So I don't expect Saquon to go crazy. There's going to be a focus to try to stack the box. Can Hurts beat them with his arm? I don't know. Can they protect Stafford on the line of scrimmage? I don't know the answer to that either. So once we answer those questions early in that game, there'll be a better opportunity maybe to live bet the game. And also the Eagles, other than last week when Green Bay handed them 7 points on the first play of the game, the Eagles have been really bad in the first quarter. The Rams are a better starting team than the Eagles are. But we've also seen Stafford and the Rams offense in bad weather look awful. That Niner Thursday night game, 12 points, not very good. They were not good against the Jets. I forget if there was a weather issue in that game, or was that a Rams home game? No,
that was at the Jets. I can't.
The Jets.
I don't think there was weather. I think it was cold, but I don't think it was a weather thing. I think they were flat off of the win against the Niners.
Right. I think. But there's another thing also. The Eagles, like the Chiefs, are great at running out the clock. They had that drive against Pittsburgh that was like a 10-minute drive to run out the clock. When you have Saquon and Hurts that could pick up 4 or 5 yards a pop, they have the ability to end the game with a 7-8 minute drive. That doesn't lead to a cover. That leads to a Saquon running and sliding to save the under and to save the dog bettors, right? So yep. I don't want to lay 6 from a pool perspective. I'm probably on the Rams, but I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not putting money on it.
Yeah, John pointing out Saquon will slide inbounds again to save those who bet the under. Not just that, but to screw over those who picked them in DraftKings because I would have cashed my 333 Wildcat lineup. I had Saquon had broke it, just gone for a touchdown. I would have cashed. I was like 5 points away from cashing, and so that would have got me there. The most frustrating part was I had the winning lineup in that tournament, which is $20,000 at first. So it's 9 players, right? I had 6 of those players in the winning lineup, and I did not cash. It's just unfortunately, I played Zacchaeus instead of De'Ami Brown. That was a huge difference, and De'Ami Brown was so much cheaper than Zacchaeus that he allowed someone to get to McLaurin instead of I forget who I had. Whichever receiver I think I had McMillan. If I swap McMillan and Zacchaeus to McLaurin and De'Ami Brown, I would have won a lot of money. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Or Barkley could have just got me there too. So that didn't happen. Those are the horrible tales of DFS. So anyway, we have the final game. So here we go. We have Ravens at the Bills. This line is Ravens -1. The Baltimore, the rare road favorite here in the divisional round of the playoffs. I'm sure we'll disagree on this game. We've disagreed on the Ravens throughout the season here. I just think that if we talk about resumes, I think the Bills are more impressive. Just looking at the second half of the season, just like forgetting what happened the first half of the season, because the Bills had injuries. Matt Milano, for example, did not play until week 13. The Bills are missing a lot of defensive players as well throughout the season. So just really going for the second half of the season onward. The Bills against Group A and Group B teams are 3-1. The only loss, we mentioned this earlier, the only loss they had was to the Rams in an obvious flat spot. The Ravens in that same span, 3-2, but 3 of those games came against the Steelers. I don't know if the Steelers belong in Group B anymore. I think I moved them out of Group B after that loss in the opening round of the playoffs. So if you remove the Steelers, if you remove all 3 of those Steelers games, you only have 1-1 against Group A and Group B. The only win against the Chargers, the only loss against the Eagles. And so I've talked about how I think the Ravens have weaknesses. Russell Wilson did not exploit those weaknesses, and he couldn't. Against the secondary, the cornerbacks just not very good. The best quarterback the Ravens have played since week 13, whatever their bye was, week 14, outside of a broken CJ Stroud, was Russell Wilson. Like, they have not been tested at all against the pass since like November. So they're going to get Josh Allen, who's played an MVP level. Josh Allen was great against the Broncos last week, just torched the secondary. I think he could do the same thing this week. The only thing I don't like here for the Bills is that the Ravens are really good against mobile quarterbacks, but I still think Josh Allen could have a good day passing against Baltimore. And then you look at the other side, the Ravens destroyed the Bills in week 4. Derrick Henry ran for 199 yards. The Ravens won 35-10. But Matt Milano did not play. He's one of the best run defending linebackers in the NFL, and he's come back. And he had a rough couple of games to start, but he's been great past 3 weeks. Terrell Bernard did not play in that game. They were also missing one other defensive starter, and they're now all healthy. So this is a much different Buffalo team. I think it's a mistake to look at that week 4 game because the Bills had a skeleton crew defense, and now they have everyone healthy. So I think this game is going to go much, much more differently. The Ravens may not have Zay Flowers. That didn't really impact last week's game because all the Ravens did was run the ball against the Steelers, and it worked. I don't know if it's going to work against the Bills. The Bills, since week 13, are 5th against the run, whereas like they were horrible against it to start the year without Milano, Bernard, etc. So yeah, I like the Bills here. I'm sure you'll be on the Ravens. So please tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I'll start with telling you why you're wrong about the Ravens from a resume perspective. Because this is the most impressive team in the league, and it's not even close. Okay, so we talk about Group A, Group B. This team, body of work, big picture, they are now 11-3 against the above-average teams. Now, when you shake it down, and I agree with you that it's more important to look at games that are more recent than the older games. Okay, believe me, I lost a fortune on that Buffalo and getting blown out in week 4. But body of work, big picture, Baltimore destroyed this team in week 4. Buffalo, if you go back and watch and look at the games throughout the season, especially second half of the season, they had a great win against Detroit where they gave up 1 million points, but they scored 1 million points because they're probably the best offense, even though from a yards perspective, the Ravens are ahead of them. I still personally think Buffalo's offense is the best offense in the league because I think Josh Allen right now even though I don't think he's the MVP in the league just based on statistics. I think he's the best quarterback in the league. If I had to pick one quarterback, and of course, I guess I'm picking Mahomes, but for one game, I want Mahomes. One Super Bowl, one big game, I want Mahomes. But from a season perspective, Allen is unbelievable. He's the guy I would want. But who have they really beaten besides for Detroit? They put up 1 million points, but they lost to the Rams on the road. The defense wasn't great. They were not impressive in that week after Detroit. Certainly, it was a big win, but they were not impressive against the Patriots. They had a great win against Kansas City, no question. That was their Super Bowl. We were all, you and I may have disagreed on that game at the time. I know I was on Buffalo as a contest pick. That was a great win for them, and that was their Super Bowl win. They dominated Seattle in Seattle. That's one of their signature moments. They did lose to Houston. Again, we're going back too long in time. So we talk about body of work. You can make an argument that they really haven't played anybody in the second half of the season besides for Kansas City either. But when we look at the entirety of the season, Baltimore, it's like week in, week out, other than the Giants and Browns games, they're dominating. Now, you who like EPA, I don't give a damn about EPA. I don't even look at this. But I did hear that since week 11, they're the number one EPA defense in the league. And in week 11, the reason I use that, or the reason that week was used, is because that's when they moved Kyle Hamilton back to the deep safety. They have all pros across the board. Nate Wiggins is a rookie. He's been really, really good, getting better and better. We look at the Eagles' defense, which is probably the best defense in the league. With Fangio, it took time for them to gel under a new DC. Mike McDonald left, so the Ravens had a new defensive coordinator this year. Certainly took them time to gel and figure out where they want players. Roquan Smith's an all-pro defensive player. Kyle Hamilton's great. Marlon Humphrey's great in the slot. Nate Wiggins has been much better lately. Their defense has been very good. They're the number one ranked rushing defense. They're not – you keep writing and talking about how they're getting torched. And every single time I ask you who they got torched by, it's like we're making excuses that they're playing Russell Wilson. I get it. Russell Wilson's not very good. But they're not getting torched. And they didn't get torched by Josh Allen in the game where Josh Allen put up 10 points. Now, let's understand one thing here. I think these are the top two teams in the league. I'm not trying to discredit Buffalo at all. I think these are the two best teams in the league. I have Baltimore ranked a point higher. So when I make my spread for this game, I favor Buffalo because I believe that at home, they are deserving of getting at least 2 points for home. I don't give anybody 3 under any circumstance. 2 points is the most I'll give, and I think Buffalo there gets 2 points, and therefore I make the line 1.5. I believe because they're at home, that factor gives them the slight edge from a spread perspective. The market disagrees with me and you and pretty much everybody else because the market opened 1.5 for Buffalo, and now is 1.5 the other way. So whatever you and I think, the market as a collective market, whether you talk about professional money, public money, whatever, and obviously a lot of that money didn't do very well this year, we get it, but the market is Baltimore is the favored team. So let's agree that the Vegas market, which you and I both have watched and lived by for many, many years, believes that Baltimore, not only are they the slightly better team, but they're not far and away the better team. They're not a 6-7 point favorite on a neutral, but they're favored. If they were at home, they're going to be at least 3.5 point favorites in this game. Let me go through the matchup here because we talked a lot about resumes, which kind of throw them a little bit more out the window. I went back and I watched this game twice, trying to figure out where are really the key factors going to be in this game. If we go back to that Buffalo-Baltimore game, early in that game, and this is where the game is going to be won or lost. And obviously there's a lot of things here that are variables that you just can't protect, right? There's going to be a random fumble. Lamar fumbled in that game. There's going to be a random fumble or a random penalty that's going to potentially change the game. But here's where the randomness does not work. And the first drive of the game, this is 0-0 score. First drive of the game. I was bitching about this at the time because I had a lot of money on Buffalo, like I said. It's 4th and 1, own 39-yard line. Buffalo goes for it. They get it. QB sneak, left guard, perfect. 3 plays later, it's 4th and 2 at midfield, punt. First play from Baltimore scrimmage, 87 yards, untouched. Henry over the right guard, great block by Ricard, great block by Mark Andrews. Henry doesn't get touched for 87 yards touchdown. Okay, stupid decision. You just got a 4th and 1 at the 39. You decided, hey, you know what? I don't trust my quarterback in 4th and 2 at midfield. Let me punt. You can't get a stop. Great. Buffalo gives the ball back. I think they may have gotten a field goal. They give up another big drive. No third downs. Baltimore doesn't touch third down until their third drive. Baltimore walks down the field, scores again. It's 14-3 before you can blink an eye. Third drive of the game, okay? Third drive of the game. It's 4th and 1 again on the 39, exactly at the 39-yard line, right? Starting at the 39-yard line. 2 drives earlier, they got it. But now it's 14-3. You can't get off the field. You're not even sniffing third down. And they decide to punt again. That's just absolutely asinine by a coaching staff, okay, by McDermott. Makes no sense at all. You got a 4th and 1 at the 39. So 3 plays later, you punted at 4th and 2 at midfield, and then 2 drives later, you punt again. These are losing plays. If that happens, I'm going to text you. They don't want to win the game. They're not ready to play. They're not ready to play big boy football. So that can't happen. On the third drive that Baltimore had, there were 3 third downs. One, it was a 3rd and 14. One was a 3rd and 11, I think, and one was a 3rd and 7. All 3 were conversions. The big one was the 3rd and 14. It was a screen to Justice Hill, who ran for 15 yards. These are plays that you can't predict. You got to get off the field or force long possessions. Those are the fluky plays that this game is going to come down to, these 3rd and 4th down conversions. Once you decide, hey, I got to go for it, like Buffalo did against Kansas City when it was 4th and 2, maybe they learned the lesson a couple weeks later. If you go for it, now you got to execute. And if it's 3rd and long, you got to get off the field. These are things that are just impossible to predict. When it comes down to coaching decisions, when it comes down to whether or not my guy can convert 3rd or 4th down, it's very, very hard to predict what's going to happen, especially when you have the 2 best running quarterbacks in the league, who are probably the 2 best at converting 3rd or 4th down. I don't care if Zay Flowers plays or not. He's worth a point. He's worth a point in a pick'em game, right? He's not going to be the reason Baltimore wins or loses this game. None of those guys are the reason they're going to win or lose this game. So this game is going to come down to, do I go for 4th and short, or do I execute? Do I convert 4th and short or 3rd and short? Can I make a field goal? And both of these kickers I won't trust. Bass and Tucker, I don't trust either one of these kickers, especially in a cold, maybe a swirling wind type of game. But at the end of the day, I'm in a pool that's worth 5 figures, and we deliberated about this game for hours and hours and hours, really going back and forth, me and my partner on this game. And ultimately, we took Buffalo. And I'm going to pick Buffalo in this game, so I'm with you on the pick. I don't think if Buffalo wins this game by 10 points, it means that we were right or wrong, or Buffalo will finally exploit the secondary. Because Buffalo is going to, if they play to their strength and they play to their capability, they should put up 31 points in this game. They should exploit Baltimore's secondary like they should exploit every other team's in the league secondary. There's not one team that I think can stop Josh Allen if he's playing the way he's capable of playing. Similarly, there's nobody that's going to contain Lamar if he plays like regular season Lamar. My hope is that with a road crowd in the cold weather, I'm hoping to see a picture on the sideline of Lamar with his little ski mask behind in the game, because I don't trust him as much when he's behind. I trust them a lot more when they're ahead. And Buffalo, similarly, I trust more also when they're ahead, not behind. So this is not the game where I've said it many times in the past where I like the team that's down at halftime. Here, I kind of like the team that's up at halftime a little bit better. I think the Bills are actually, they've run away with games when they were ahead at halftime. And I think Allen this year for the season is 15-2, or the Bills are 15-2 in the second half. I think I saw that somewhere. So when they're up, they're running away. I trust them a lot more. I believe they deserve to be favored. I don't want to read into, hey, we're dogs at home. That's going to give them motivation. If they're not motivated for this game, I don't think they need a spread to motivate them in this game. But I like Buffalo because they're at home. And I picked Buffalo in a pool that I'm in. We're considering a hedge because if Buffalo wins, we're pretty much guaranteed in the money. But I just think this is going to come down to those decisions. I really would like to believe that McDermott will go back and watch the film and realize, what the hell am I thinking? Punting 4th and 2 to Derrick Henry and to Lamar Jackson. It doesn't work. And maybe he learned his lesson because he didn't do it. He didn't kick the field goal late in the game against Kansas City. He went. You have to go. You have to let Allen run with his legs. They had a bunch of drops in that game. There was a 3rd and 2 that I think Dawson Knox dropped the pass, and they punted. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. Also in that game, when it was 21, I think it was 21-10, late second quarter, and the Bills got a first down in midfield, and on 3 consecutive plays, Allen just chucked the ball deep. You can't do that. We've said that a number of times. You have to take what the defense gives you. You can't just chuck the ball deep in low percentage plays. And the last thing I'll say in this game, and we saw this last year in Kansas City, before Buffalo missed what would have been a go-ahead, not game-winning, but a go-ahead field goal. Buffalo ended up getting into field goal range, although it wasn't field goal range because he missed it. I think it was a 42-yard field goal. So they get to like the 23, 24-yard line. and Allen's throwing the ball into the end zone with like a minute to go. You remember this?
Yeah.
Maybe there's 45 seconds to go. You can't do that. Mahomes is not doing that. You're not throwing the ball into the end zone to win the game with 50 seconds to go. You have to run the clock. You have to play the clock. You cannot give Lamar the ball back. Maybe Tucker reverts to his old self and is able to make a 50-yard kick, although I wouldn't bet on that. But I'm not giving the ball back to Lamar, letting him run wild, or Henry. You have to play the clock. So the coaching decisions in this game, the converting of third and fourth downs, red zone, these are things that you just can't predict. These are the best teams in the league on third down. They're the best teams in the league on fourth down. And that's, the resume speaks for itself. These are the top two teams in the league. You want to say Baltimore's 5 and Buffalo's 2, it doesn't matter. This game is a pick'em game. It's a great game. It's going to come down to those decisions. And then once the decisions are made, are they going to execute 4th and 2? And are they going to get off the field, either team, when it's 3rd and 11 and Allen or Lamar run now for 12 yards or 15 yards and have a big – we know it's going to happen on both sides. I think this game is going to be a high-scoring game. I have this game a field goal game either way. I have it 30-27. I think this is – I say the Washington-Detroit's game is going to be more fun because I think it's – I expect Detroit to win. I think it's, you have an underdog story. Can they make the game exciting? Maybe. This game, obviously, is the Super Bowl. The winner of this game is winning the Super Bowl. Now, I wouldn't necessarily bet my life going against Mahomes or the referees that are on the Chiefs next year because that's going to be a great game. And I think Detroit or Philly are both certainly capable, although I do like Detroit over Philly next week. So we'll see if that matchup happens. I do like Detroit next week. I like Detroit to win this week. I like Detroit to win next week. They certainly can win. But this is the Super Bowl. These are the two best teams. The winner of this game just has a tough road because they have now, off of this win, they now have to go to Kansas City and play against 12 guys. So, I just think this is going to be an awesome game. I'm with you. I do like the home crowd. I'm surprised that the line has moved now across 1. This is going to be an awesome game. But don't discredit the Baltimore defense. These are neither defenses should stop the opposing offense. Enjoy the game, but give me Josh Allen. Hopefully, Josh Allen, Superman, to take over. When do they announce MVP?
It's usually it's like the day before the Super Bowl, isn't it? They had that awards.
I think it was this week for some reason.
Yeah, they usually do it. They have the ceremony the weekend of the Super Bowl. It's on Saturday or something.
Okay. Lamar won the All-Pro, first team All-Pro.
Yeah.
It's the same voters.
Right.
So whether you pick, listen, I think Allen, the case for Allen is they're the 2 seed. The case for Lamar is that statistically he leads in every category. The case for Allen back is that Lamar has Derrick Henry, Allen doesn't.
Right.
So you can make an argument for either one. I hope Allen wins. I like Allen. I'm rooting for Allen. I don't like the Ravens. I know you think that I like the Ravens. I'm just not biased. I'm betting on the Ravens every week, and they make me money, so I'm not going to throw my bias. I actually don't like the Ravens. I think I told you last week I still have nightmares of the Ravens holding Michael Crabtree in the end zone on 4th and 2 and winning a Super Bowl that they didn't deserve. And I've also told you that my wife's a Steeler fan, so other than when I bet against the Steelers, I usually root for the Steelers over the Ravens. So I don't like the Ravens, but this team is the best team. They have the best resume. They're the best team. They should be a 1-point dog, not a 1-point favorite. But let's root for Josh Allen together. Hopefully he doesn't. Hopefully they go for 4th downs, and hopefully he doesn't try to play hero ball and get that game go-ahead touchdown with any more than 13 seconds left on the clock, because that'll be a shame. I want to see Allen in the Super Bowl. I want to see that team. I want to see them win the Super Bowl. But I'm definitely rooting for them this week.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought you'd be on the Ravens, and here we go. We're on 3 of the same teams, and then Eagles, Rams,
which I may change my mind 2 minutes into the game.
Yeah, so that's interesting that we agree on 3 of the 4 games, really. So, and maybe 4 to 4. Yeah, I mean, we will disagree on the Ravens winning the Super Bowl if they win this game. I don't think they'll win in Kansas City. I think they match up very poorly against the Chiefs because the Chiefs run. The Chiefs stopped the run so well, and that's how they shut the Ravens down every time they played them.
They shut the Ravens down because the Ravens forgot to run the ball last year. They simply didn't.
Last year, the Chiefs had a bad run defense. This year, the Chiefs' run defense is great. They really
So
improved that
last year,
area.
the Ravens just stopped running the football in the second
Yeah,
half.
no doubt. Yeah, they didn't run enough, but no, the Chiefs this year have been great against the run. So that's how they stopped in the first game. If you remember the first game, Derrick Henry did nothing in that game. So we'll see. And then for the Super Bowl, I think it depends on who the NFC participant is. If it's the Lions, I would like the Ravens, just because the Lions can't stop mobile quarterbacks. But if it's the Eagles, I think the Eagles would shut down the Ravens. So they did that the first time. They're great against mobile quarterbacks, and they're great against the run. Number one against the run. So it really depends on what the matchup is.
Yeah, and there's a lot that's going to happen between now and February
Yeah.
9th. But I think that the AFC, I think the AFC will be favored in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends who gets there, but if it's the top two teams, I agree. I think
the Chiefs have to be favored just because of the experience. If it's Chiefs Lions, I would have the Chiefs probably 1.5.
Yeah.
If it's Bills Lions, I would probably have Bills 1.5 to 2.5. And if it's Ravens Lions, I would probably also have like a 2.5. I don't think anybody would be -3 over the Lions. I think it'd be 2.5. I think all three of those teams would be between 2 and 2.5. And against the Eagles, I think they. Well, remember, if the Eagles go into Detroit and win, they're going to get a boost.
Yeah.
And if the Bills or Ravens go into Kansas City and win, they're going to get a boost. So everybody's going to get a boost. But I think over Philly, the Chiefs maybe 2.5, but Buffalo and Baltimore would be at least 3 over Philly. At least 3.
Oh, I would love Eagles +3 over the Ravens.
Yeah, you could probably get that now, by the way. You probably get better than that now.
Yeah. Oh man, I would love that. I mean, I loved the Eagles the first time they played against the Ravens. So
now remember, Tucker missed a bunch of kicks in that game. That game was.
Yeah, but the Eagles didn't even try to burn their secondary. It was like they just ran the ball against them, and like that was very telling because the Ravens are great against the run, and the Eagles just smashed the ball with Saquon Barkley against them. It was impressive. Like they didn't even try to torch the secondary. So yeah, I mean it's true. The Tucker did miss 2 field goals, but the Eagles, Eagles seemed. I feel like they had that game like well under control.
I mean, you know where the lines are going to be. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that Baltimore right now is very much far and away the highest power rated team by our friends in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they were the highest rated team going into the week because they were only 1.5 point dogs, which means they're at worst equal to Buffalo. And now with the money that they're taking, the line has moved. I mean, they're a good 2 points better than everybody else. So,
yeah.
And I do believe that Buffalo, Kansas City, and the Lions are all ahead of the Eagles, especially now with the Hurts. I downgraded the Eagles a point because of how poorly Hurts played. I need to see Hurts play better to give them their +7.5 back. And then I have a massive downgrade to the Rams, Washington. Those teams are like 3, 2.5, 2. Good teams, but not upper echelon teams. There are 5 teams that are the class of the league. So that's where we're headed with next week. I wouldn't be shocked, like I said, if the Rams won, but I think we as NFL fans want to see Philly, Detroit, and then of course, obviously Kansas City, not Houston. That would be disturbing if we have to watch Houston play Buffalo or Baltimore and get waxed again, like they did Christmas.
Hey, it's gonna happen. It's the OA Cardinals. It's I called it a long time ago. It's gonna be
they're not winning this game.
Kurt Warner, CJ Stroud, lots of similarities there.
Houston over Washington Super Bowl. Wow. Okay.
What do you think about that? 38,000.
I'll take your bet.
Is there any team? I played this game with Tom on Saturday, and he kind of copped out. There's some shade at Tom. He asked me this question. He's like, let's play a game. Is there any team that you would say is 0% to win the Super Bowl? And I was like, yeah, I think Denver is. And he's like, oh no, I think Denver can win. And I'm like,
last week or like now?
Well, we played this game on Saturday night after the Steelers.
Yeah, I would have said Pittsburgh and Denver have 0 chance to win the Super Bowl last week.
Okay, yeah, well, we did this after the Steelers game, so you would have said that you would have said Denver.
I would have said there's no freaking chance Denver is winning the Super Bowl this year.
Right.
This week, I probably wouldn't say the same thing. I wouldn't say that no. There's too few games, and the only team that I would say I don't think has a prayer to win the Super Bowl this year right now is Houston. I would be shocked if they won back-to-back games in Kansas City and Buffalo, Baltimore. Shocked. But
I would.
it's not like they're a 21-point underdog this week.
Right.
They're an 8-point dog. We've seen this before. Every year, if you go back in history, there are teams that are 8-point favorites that lose outright.
Yep.
On a teaser perspective, if you flip a 13, which we've talked about before, I'm not taking Philly +7. Yep. I'm not flipping the touchdown. I think Philly +7 is a bad bet.
Well, I mean, you don't have that many options this week. So.
No, you don't have options this week, but if I'm playing that way, I don't think the Chiefs are losing. I like the Texans getting 1 million points. Same with Washington. Buffalo and Baltimore. I mean, it would not surprise me if either of those teams lost 34-21. If the game is a 21-21, going to the fourth quarter, give up a touchdown, it's 28-21, a team goes for fourth down, they don't get it, next play, Cook or Henry, somebody breaks a touchdown, and it's 35-21. It could happen. It's a 14-point game that feels a lot closer than the final score. I just don't think there's a value in betting that. I know everybody is teasing Buffalo right now. If you could find 1.5, they're getting Buffalo +7.5, which is a good bet. It's a decent bet, and they're doing that with Kansas City and with Detroit. So you take those three teams, KC, Detroit, Buffalo, and throw them into whatever combination, round robin your 6.5 point teasers, and that's the bet. And then if you have Buffalo to close a 7.5, you can bet the Ravens, pick them money line -1, whatever, and middle your action. So that's I'm not such a 6-point teaser. I don't generally ever play 6-point teasers. I'm going to be on Houston, Washington, and then I'm just going to, like I said, I'm in a pool. I don't need to bet the game. I'm in a big pool that if Buffalo wins, almost any combination puts me in the money. And if Buffalo wins, if Buffalo wins the Super Bowl, or if I get the top 4 seeds, if chalk holds out, any combination of Kansas City, Detroit, I automatically win, or Buffalo winning, I win. So I'm rooting with you this week, as much as you think I'm a Ravens fan. I'm rooting for for Buffalo. I keep saying that. My friend says, it's a Freudian slip. You really, in your head, believe that Baltimore is going to win the game. I told you last week that Baltimore would be my pick to win the Super Bowl, but as the week went on, we put in Buffalo as our Super Bowl team. So and maybe it's my head just rooting, but I just think the home crowd is the difference here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the differences. I mean, we disagree on the strength of the Ravens and such. For me, I would have said so. I was talking about with Tom teams that are 0% chance to win. I said Denver and Washington. I would say Washington because they have a rookie quarterback. No rookie quarterback has ever won. Jaden Daniels is no ordinary rookie, but still, I just feel like this team doesn't have. This team has some major flaws. Like they can't stop the run. I don't trust their pass protection. They can't run the ball. I don't trust Cliff Kingsbury either. So, like, Jane Daniels can do some magical things. And I didn't say that they definitely wouldn't beat Tampa. I just said I didn't think they could win the Super Bowl. So my answers to that question was Denver and Washington. And then, like, Tom was like, I think all those teams can win. And I'm like, wait, no, why do you ask me this question? But right now, I think Washington.
I don't think you would book a Washington no. If I'm trying to just quickly looking at FanDuel to see what Super Bowl odds are. And again, nobody should ever bet futures on these games because you can mechanically parlay, right? Yep. You'll get better odds by betting Washington on the money line now, rolling it over next week and rolling it over again. Whatever your payout is on the Super Bowl, that way would be better. Washington right now is 26-1, which is a joke. I mean, 26-1 is an unfair line. I would not bet 26-1. But if somebody came to me and I'm Evan's Sportsbook and they're putting up 10 grand on Washington to win the Super Bowl, do I want to book that? The answer is no. I think it's going to be close this week. And if it's close this week, why can't it be close next week?
Yeah, I don't think they can beat the Eagles. I mean, well, who knows? Maybe the Eagles lose to the Rams. So, well, I mean, we'll see. But
you're not laying a money line right now with real money. You're not taking your kids' college tuition, college stock account, and betting it on the no Redskins. You can bet no Redskins. You can fly to Circa right now and take the no and take whatever amount of money. I'm sure they'll take whatever you want.
Well,
They're the one book that play that allows you to take the no.
The money line's just too high. There's no value. Like
there's no value. Yeah, of course, there's no value.
Yeah, there's really no point in betting it. So
I'm saying, but you could bet the no, and you get a nice quick return on your money in a couple of weeks.
You get more return selling cover calls. So I
I
think I'll do that anyway. I by the way, I haven't. I've been saying that I've been betting well, not betting, but I've been putting any bonus bets I've had on random Super Bowl teams to win the Super Bowl throughout the season. This week. I had a few bonus bets come through. I put everything I got this week on Buffalo plus 550 to win the Super Bowl.
Okay, so now let's talk about Buffalo plus 550.
Yeah.
The spread is now called. Let's just pretend it's even money, right?
Well, keep in mind, I have not bet any real money on it. It's just bonus bet stuff.
No, I understand, but whatever amount it was, if you take $100 and you win this week, you now have 200.
Right.
Let's pretend they'll be even money next week. They won't be. They'll be dogs next week. If they go on the road to Kansas City, they'll probably be on the dogs, right?
Yeah.
So let's just pretend you're getting even money again.
Yeah.
Your 200 just became 400, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you have 400. I said they'll be favored in the Super Bowl. Let's pretend it's going to be again even money. 400 becomes 800, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so your $100 bet just paid 8-1. Now you lose that first 100, so really you're winning 700. So just on that math alone, you're getting cheated by FanDuel on the odds.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I guess take the minus 102 is better. I don't know. It's more fun that way. Plus,
it's more fun because it's easier. Just throw it out there.
It's very easy. It's very easy. Just click a button.
I have a future that I took weeks ago on Buffalo Philly to be matched up for 12-1.
Okay, I like it. That's I would say that's my pick right now, if I had to.
So I have that at 12-1.
Yeah, I think it'll be Bills Eagles. I do think Lions Eagles will be super close if it gets to that. I do think Buffalo will beat Baltimore and then Kansas City.
I think the Lions will be favored by 2.5 or 3 points next week.
Really? Okay.
2.5. 2.5 is fair. 2.5 minus 20.
Which is weird because there were 3 over the Vikings.
Which was a stupid line.
Yeah, that's true.
We all bet that.
Yeah.
That was a contest pick. That was a mistake line. Chiefs will win it. They always do. Of course, we all sit here and talk about reasons why the Chiefs will win it, and we know the Chiefs are going to win.
Yeah, I put a few bonus bets on the Chiefs earlier, but now as you can see on the screen, we have Chiefs at plus 350, Bills at plus 550. This was flipped earlier. I think the Chiefs are like plus 500 at one point. And the Bills were the favorites of the AFC, and now it's flipped here. So I don't know. I mean, maybe if you think the Cardinals, the Texans are early Cardinals, you take them 44-1. I think that
Cardinals. What's the Texans this week? What's the money line this week?
Let's see here. They are plus 350.
Okay, so your $100 bet wins 350, and then next week they're going to be a similar. Let's pretend plus 350 again.
Mm-hmm.
Against the winner of the Buffalo-Baltimore game, they're going to be certainly similar line.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So your 350 is now 450. Now you have $1,600.
Yep.
And if Houston wins that game, maybe they're pick 'em against Detroit, but they'll probably still be dogs. Let's say they're even plus 150.
Yeah.
Now your $100 bet just became $2,400. What'd you say the line was now?
44-1.
24?
44.
44. So okay, so somewhere.
Yeah, it's actually good value.
that actually might be good value because when you mechanically parlay it. Oh, I did this wrong. 450, right? Through 100 wins 350, gives you 450 times another 3.5 is 1,600. Even if it's plus 200, you're still getting paid 3,000. So yeah, that 44-1 is a good number.
That's juicy. Let's bet it.
I'll pass.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass too. But I don't know. I think there is something to this Houston team. I don't think they're 0%. I think they're like 1% or 2%. But I don't think that. I don't think they are like the Broncos were last week.
Okay.
There's
a non-zero number that's around 1 to 2% on Houston.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's probably a 3 to 4% on Washington, maybe similar on the Rams, maybe 4 to 5% on the Rams, and then there's everybody else.
I just think there's something to this Houston team because they have such a great defense. They have a great pass rush. They have C.J. Stroud was great last year. He hasn't been as good this year, but he could rekindle that. Nico Collins is amazing. Joe Mixon's great. I think some of their offensive line is good. I think Ryans is a fine coach. Slowick's been terrible this year, but he was better last week, and he was good last year, I thought.
Yeah, I have them cover. I agree with you. I think they cover. Now, if they go up next week against the other two teams, who either one would get a bump from winning this week, and of course, Houston would get a bump. I have Houston right now ranked 13th. Maybe they go to 2.5. I would still have that line over a touchdown next week.
Yeah, me too. I mean, for sure, but
it'd be very hard.
John says they don't have a prayer on the road. I think they have a prayer. I don't think they're going to win, but I think they can keep it close, and I think they'll have a chance. Crazier things have happened, like that 08 Cardinals team playing at Carolina. Carolina was a massive favorite. That was the bit I used to have about Jake Delhomme. He just so bad in that game. I joked that his son was kidnapped. That was the
was it 4 pick?
What'd you say?
You have 4 picks in that game.
It was something like that. And that was when Taken came out with Liam Neeson, and like I kind of was like, I'm sure that Jake Delhomme, his son was kidnapped. They're holding him ransom. They try to make him lose that game on purpose. They actually got some hate mail for it. They're like, how could you say that? But Jake Delhomme's son actually looked it up. He didn't have a son. He has 2 daughters. So I was like, I was not being serious here. So, anything else you want to discuss before we head out?
One of the things we talk about, things that are kind of up for grabs. Red zone teams in the red zone last week went 12 for 30. I guess that contributed to unders, not including Baltimore, who went 3 for 4. Everybody else was 9 for 26, 35%. It's pretty crazy. So
when you run Brian Robinson over and over again, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing to really think about, it's such a small sample size. We started off by talking about sample size. If Baltimore and Buffalo played 100 times, do either of these teams win more than 55? Right? Is it really? Do you really in your heart believe that it's such a matchup edge, such a better team that it's going to be 65-35 or 60-40? I don't think you believe that. I think that these two teams are so closely matched. They have 2 unbelievable quarterbacks. And you talk about spreads in general, right? If Washington and the Lions played 10 times, how many times is Washington? Washington's not going to lose 10 out of 10 times. Frankly, Houston's not going to lose to Kansas City 10 out of 10 times. So there's a non-zero, talking about percentages of Super Bowl, there's a non-zero number where Houston wins outright. There's a non-zero number that the Chiefs win by 22, 31-2, like Baltimore did on Christmas against Houston. So when we talk about these games, we try to figure out what's going to happen this week. Well, if these teams play 10 times, 2 times it's going to be a massive upset. 2 times it's going to be a massive blowout. And 6 times it'll be somewhere in the middle, right? So that's just how I look at some of these games. Like Philly, that's why I don't really want to bet Philly or the Rams. I just think there's different ways to look at the game. You'll see the game open up. You'll see who's able to do what, how weather is affecting them. Do they look distracted or do they look like they're on an emotional letdown? Does Hurts look a lot better than what he did now? We get more information, and with that information, we can bet accordingly. So props, spreads, team total, over-unders, first half, second half. There's a lot of different ways to attack these games. And when you look at sample sizes, they're so small. When I say, well, the game's going to come down to a turnover. Well, how the hell do you handicap them? Well, I picked Washington last week because I thought Baker turns the ball over more than Jaden. I got lucky. I got right. I was right. He missed an exchange on a handoff. On a drive after, they stopped Washington on a 4th down, 4th and short. Go figure, right? The 2 handicaps in the game are who's going to convert 4th down and who's going to turn the ball over. It just so happened that they got to stop on 4th down, got the ball right back, and then converted. So in a red zone situation, like there's 3 or 4 plays in every game that are going to be the determining factors. We can sit here and talk for hours and hours about games and what could happen or what should happen, what coaches could or shouldn't do. But the reality is all these games are so close. They're so tight. And we just hope that we get good games. And at the end of the day, the Chiefs should win. The Lions should win. Maybe the Eagles should win also, although I think that game might be closer. And then throw your hands up and pray that McDermott doesn't punt on 4th and 2 from midfield. I know Tomlin's going to punt from midfield on 4th and 2, and I know Kyle Shanahan will punt on 4th and 2 from midfield. So going into those games, that's an easy handicap. I know one team is going to punt. I know one team has a loser mentality. I hope in this game, McDermott learned his lesson from the Baltimore game and from going in the Kansas City game, and you and I will both sit here and say, yeah, Buffalo wins. Walt was right. Baltimore's not that good. But the reality is it's such a small sample, so we don't go crazy with the bets. Hopefully we can match last week 5-1. I'd like to go 3-1 again. That'll be nice. Continue the winning ways and look for some SGPs that we go 12 out of 13 and FanDuel offers us some BS cash out that we decline to lose.
Yeah, it's really amazing that there are only 32 NFL head coaches. Like in the world, there are 8 billion people. They have 32 coaches in the NFL, and you can't find 32 men who make plus EV decisions. You think?
Well, I believe you can. I just don't think the owners get ahead of themselves. I have a 6-year-old son who plays Madden all day and questions these decisions, and I'm proud of him for questioning these decisions. He comes in. Why are they punting? Why are they doing this? And he sees and understands what's going on because he sits and plays Madden. If you play 10,000 hours of Madden, and I don't play video games or Madden, I have a bunch of boys who sit and play all day. There's more than 32 people that understand math and positive EV and that you shouldn't punt on 4th and 2, especially since 10 minutes earlier you got it at 4th and 2 or you converted a 4th and 1. You might want to be consistent. I just think a lot of these coaches get in their own way, they get in their own heads and just make dumb decisions. I was very surprised last night with Kevin O'Connell in the approach in the fourth quarter. The lack of urgency. He's a good coach. I'm not going to sit there and tell you he's a bad coach because of the decisions that were made in that game. There was a year where Tennessee had a similar situation, and I think Vrabel also punted midfield in a 4th down, 4th and short situation. Nobody thinks Vrabel's a bad coach. Vrabel, I think, is one of the better coaches. Shocked that he got ousted in Tennessee, and I think it's a great hire by New England. But sometimes these coaches get in their own way and make the wrong decisions. And you can say, well, you don't know your team. You guys sit on the couch. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. No, I do. You don't punt 4th and 2, 4th and 1 at the 39. You can't. You can't do it. So hopefully these coaches will give us what we want. And listen, it comes down to execution. And if you go for 4th and 1 10 times, you're not going to go 10 for 10. So these are the big moments in games that change seasons, that change the game. And just got to throw your hands up. You either get it or you don't get it. And it sucks. You win or lose on there's 3 plays in a game that determine winning and losing, and billions of dollars that are gambled, changing hands, or in your situation, Saquon Barkley going down or not running another 50 yards. You got Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on the sidelines yelling, what is he doing? Go, go, go. and how much money changed hands because he slid.
Yep.
Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars because guy slides down. So I'll give you some crazy stories before the Super Bowl on some crazy Super Bowl bets that I've had. If you remember that Eagles-Chiefs game where the Chiefs correctly, in a tie game, slid at the 5-yard line, ran out the clock, game-winning field goal. Mm-hmm. And how much money changed hands because they did that and didn't score a touchdown. So there's so few plays that determine winning and losing that there's just a lot of variables. And that's why football is so great. That's why these handicapping and trying to figure out what's going to happen and why is just part of the beauty of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Sue says, Quacky and Kenny are in Florida. Andy's in Vegas. Walt is in PA. But where is Evan? In an underground bunker in an undisclosed location. Yes, that window behind Evan is not real. He's underground. Still not real. Still not real.
If you invite me on next week, I'll be in an undisclosed location. I will not be here.
That's true. That's true. You will be somewhere else.
Out of this country.
Yes, you will be somewhere else next week.
I'll be somewhere else next week.
Yeah, Blue Chippers knocked out Evans Longhorns. Does he like the Buckeyes to continue their rampage or pivot to the Irish?
Nope, Buckeyes by 1,000,000.
Yes. I have not posted my pick yet. I will in a bit. I imagine I will be on Ohio State. I've not fully looked into all the matchups, but I think the Buckeyes are a lot better than
I don't think that game is very close.
Yeah, agreed. All right, that's been it. Thanks, guys, for watching and commenting. Really appreciate it. Thanks for Evan for joining us once again. Always love these Tuesday shows. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would be appreciated. We'll be back tomorrow with Kenny. They have more best ball drafts. They're doing round 2 onward for playoff best ball. So I think Kenny and I will be doing some best ball drafts tomorrow. That was a lot of fun last week, so we'll do it again. Thursday, I think Andy will be on. I haven't heard from him yet. He wasn't able to come on last week, so hopefully he'll be able to come this week. And I assume Tom will be on Saturday. And by the way, tomorrow I'm going to be hurting because I'm getting a tooth extracted, this molar right here on the bottom, right? So you guys will have to help me out along with Kenny. So, all right, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it once again, and I'll talk to you later.
Let's go, Buffalo.
Let's go.